Hi everyone. First of all, I have to take a little picture of all of you. This is the first time that I speak in front of such a massive audience in Switzerland. As you guys probably know, GetYourGuide was created just, I would say, 500 meters away from here in Technopark. And before I get going with the presentation, I just want to tell you a little story about disruption that I hope also applies maybe to your industry or to your segment that you're working in. So when we created GetYourGuide in Technopark in a very, very small room, it was so small that actually our server didn't fully fit into the room. So we kind of like had to wrap the cable outside of the room, and the electric wiring kind of like was ripped off every time we tripped over the cable, and then the website was down in the first months when we launched the service. So that was how we started. A few people in a room with no income and nothing to lose. And on the other side of the street back then was another company called KEYNOTE, back then the giant in the travel industry in Switzerland and one of the giants in Europe. As you guys know, 10 years later, KEYNOTE no longer exists in its current shape or form, and GetYourGuide has grown to be at a higher market capitalization than KEYNOTE ever was. So I would have never dreamt this is possible until I saw it with my own hands. But typically revolutions take a very long time until they happen, and when they happen very, very fast. So as you look at your industry, don't look necessarily only at the incumbents. A lot of people look at the very large companies, the companies that everyone knows, the Googles, the Facebooks, etc. One thing that I've really learned, and one thing that time and again has been reinforced in my thinking, is that you shouldn't watch at these big companies. You should look at the young and crazy guys. I'm much more afraid of the young and crazy guys who have nothing to lose, who will be the next ones who will disrupt us at some point. So that's a little story for you to get started on Technopark and the wonderful building that we're in. And what I'll tell you today is what are like the next 5 to 10 years that I see for GetYourGuide, and then also for the future of the travel industry in total. And before we get going, let me just reiterate one thing with you that might be obvious to people who work in the travel industry, but not so obvious for people who are not as familiar with our products. The last 25 years in travel were all about the commodity items of travel. So it was all about bringing flights and hotels and rental cars and just the very classic travel products online. And what we've seen was that people moved away from the package travel, so the stuff that companies like KEYNOTE or Thomas Cook, another company that recently went bankrupt, sold, towards more modular parts of travel. So all of you guys have probably seen that companies like Booking.com have been growing very fast. They made hotel rooms available. Airbnb has grown very fast. They made vacation rentals accessible. But now as we look into the future of travel, it's actually no longer about these commodity items, but instead it's actually about experience. Because when you went, and I don't know if many of you did, but I can still remember that, when I went to a travel agent 20 years ago, or 15 years ago, I actually wasn't necessarily looking just for the flight or for the hotel. I was looking for an experience, right? I wanted to go and see Thailand. And that experience is something that has completely fallen out of the grid as all of the commodity items have moved digital. And this is one of the biggest trends that we currently see in the travel industry, is the renaissance of the travel experience that has been forgotten over the last 15 to 20 years. And as all of these massive companies like Airbnb and Booking, both companies with tens of billions of market capitalization, have been built, none of them really focused on the experience. They're all just focused on either the flight or the bed. And you can see that also in the numbers. So if you look at how many dollars or euros, Swiss francs, people actually spend on experiences, so the things that they do when they travel, so sightseeing tours, attractions, day trips, etc., you will see that this is actually one of the largest pieces of leisure travel globally. Leisure travel globally is roughly $1.6 trillion a year, what people spend on leisure travel. Roughly 10% of that is actually in experiences. And it is by far the fastest growing part of it, growing at roughly 2 times the rate of the overall travel industry, with 8% every single year. What is fueling that? Probably all of you guys actually do know this little app called Instagram that is on your phone. And just think of what the average picture in your feed actually looks like. It's probably of someone traveling, just having an amazing experience, and with a lot of hashtags under it. And this sort of like experiential part of travel has become so important to particularly the millennial generation that more and more people actually flock to the internet to understand how they can actually relive similar experiences. Just to give you, one small kind of like highlight of that is, in Bali, we recently launched the first Instagram photo tour across all of Bali, and within 3 months, it has become the best-selling product, not only on GetYourGuide, but in all of Bali in total, with thousands and thousands of people every single day. So millennials actually do not want things any longer. They want to have experiences and memories that they can share with their family and friends, and that is what you see in the market data. Flights and commodities will continue to exist in the future, but they will be merely packaged into it. It will be like the common architecture for a trip. But what you will actually be choosing upon as we move into a more AI-powered future is actually going to be the experience itself, while everything else is going to be stuck together based on your needs, preferences, and budget. So in a way, similar to the old days of the travel agents, just in a world of artificial intelligence and endless selection and personalization and personal customization. So as you're going onto your next trip, what I encourage you to do is actually to really think more deeply about all of the different components and all of the different things that you can see, because there are quite a lot of them. And I come from Berlin. One of the latest experiences that have been launched there were actually, believe it or not, Trabi safari. So you could actually rent a Trabi and go through the streets of Berlin as a new sightseeing tour. Hugely popular with tourists. Obviously, Segway tours have existed for many years, but also even things like private tours now have a complete renaissance because, as a student, if you're really interested in guiding people around and you want to make some extra money, and for instance, you have a degree in art history, you can log onto a platform like GetYourGuide and easily offer your services, and boom, you have a complete new offering in your city. And these type of micro experiences are just bound to grow over the next couple of years. One of the questions that I always get when I tell the story is, it's so obvious, Johannes, why did no one else think of this? This is just such a natural piece of travel. And I can tell you, in hindsight, a lot of things are obvious, but one of the key reasons why it wasn't so easy to pull off is that unlike the flight or the hotel world, which are very simple, so if you think about a hotel bed or a hotel, it's always a king-size bed, a queen-size bed, it's always at a specific location, it always has a price, and that's about all you need to know. If you think about our world, the experience itself, just think of all of the different possibilities that we actually need to bring online and that we need to bring to life. And that's been also one of the greatest challenges that we as engineers actually had to get right as we've built up the platform. So we have to integrate anything from a day trip where, for instance, customers are incredibly curious, where and how they will be picked up from their hotel, and where they will be dropped off, and what the 8 stops on the day trip are, and what types of food they actually have included in it, all the way to an attraction ticket, where it's really about, how much does it cost? Do I actually have this exhibition? Do I have additional information in my app? Can I actually access the museum seemingly? Can I have a barcode that's integrated in my app, or a hop-on, hop-off bus tour where it's all about where's actually the route and when does the next bus come. So I just give you a couple of examples that already show that the infrastructure that we needed to build to get this right spans many different categories and is highly complex. And at this point, actually sort of occupies dozens of engineering teams, and it still feels like we can only scrap at the surface, and there are lots and lots of layers of depth underneath. And that complexity in the technical product was one of the key reasons why this platform was so hard to build, and why it actually took a lot longer than the traditional hotel or flight platforms. That said, now that the infrastructure is built, the next level of the travel experience that's coming now is going to be really exciting for all of you as consumers. Because what it means that now that we have all of the supply data, we will really turn onto the consumer data. And there's a lot more data these days available than there was 10 years ago when we started in the little room in Technopark. 10 years ago, things like Instagram or Facebook didn't exist. We weren't tracking where people were and what type of profiles and taste graphs they had. Today, we know all of that. We actually know which hotel you sleep in. We know, what approximately your travel budget is, whether you've already been in a city multiple times before, whether that's your hometown or whether you're on a business trip or not. And based on that, we can actually now tailor the travel experience to your needs, showcasing things that you might have not even thought of. Because one of the most exciting things that I realized while I was in the industry is that most travelers don't even know what they want. So 80 to 90% of the travel audience actually does not have a very clear idea. Most travelers go on vacation and they typically have 2 to 3 major sites that they want to tick off. So if I go to Paris, for instance, everyone wants to see the Eiffel Tower and the Louvre and maybe have like some authentic French food. But that's about it. And there is at least 50% of their trip that's completely empty today, and that's often just left up to luck. And that's a massive opportunity to even increase the opportunity for the travel experience to be front and center for the travel plan. And then also, it's a massive opportunity for the traveler to actually have a much more memorable and unique trip by not only seeing the major sites, but actually going really way beyond that. And one of the key success factors of Get Your Guide over the last couple of years was that we were able to capture all of the main sites and make them accessible to customers, but then even go beyond and offer the more interesting experiences that go beyond the blockbusters. What we're doing, and what part of the complication is, what we have to deal with is that, we're primarily developing for a mobile world now. So when we started, in this little room that I was just talking about, 60 to 70% of our customers actually, visited the website on a desktop, and there was, only a small fraction back then that was actually on tablets and that was on mobile devices. Today, desktop is, very, very small for us. The mobile app and the mobile websites and tablets are very, very large. Most of the consumers have much, much shorter lead times. The millennials don't plan. They act in the moment. They want to have something available right here and right now. So what we need to do is have very intuitive interfaces, good curation, very good categorization, good personalization, and then instant availability. And that is absolutely expected, but it's actually really hard to do if you want to do it end-to-end with all of the different service providers in a city at any given point in time. And then also depending on things like the weather, etc. Another thing that we've started to do, and that's probably what I'm most passionate about right now in the entire company, is something called Get Your Guide Originals. So one of the feedback points that I got, very often from family and friends, basically since the founding of the company, was, yeah, it's really nice that you take care of sightseeing as an industry, but aren't most sightseeing providers really bad? And so aren't they the big tourist buses that no one wants to be on? And mass tourism feels something like a dirty word, right? No one, over tourism is one of the biggest buzzwords that we have in our industry. And you know what? That's actually partially right. So a lot of providers are actually not delivering really great service. And that is because in the old world of travel that I was discussing earlier, of package tourism, no one had a choice. You were going to the travel agent and you were given a package, and once you were on that package, you couldn't get out, right? So you had to consume whatever was there, and there was no review or no accountability for the local operator anyways. So ultimately what happened was, as a customer, as a tourist, you were getting milked as much as possible. So as much profit as possible they could get out of your wallet, that was basically the best they could do for their families, their business, and their local community. Now, today, things are different. The internet makes things transparent. The trip is modular. You have an Airbnb and you have a Get Your Guide experience as separate objects. And what we can do with the power of our consumer data and our consumer demand is actually to craft better experiences. So don't only think of Get Your Guide as a digital product, also think of it as a physical product. So what if we could make the sightseeing tour better per se based on consumer data and then consistently measure our success? And one of the role models that we had in mind was actually Netflix, because we saw how Netflix revolutionized television. They did not offer a streaming device. They also wrote the scripts of what actually makes an interesting TV series or an interesting movie. So we applied that to tours. We took all of our knowledge, we took all of our data, and started to re-script the way how tour experiences worked at the most major points of interest around the world, so from the Louvre to the Vatican museums, etc., with hand-curated tour guides, new meeting points, new additional information, so all of like the core pain points that we saw with customers. And we launched that a year ago, roughly, with 23 test tours. So this has been massively, massively, massively successful. We had over 160,000 tickets booked year to date just in this pilot, massive conversion rates, and more than 30% higher customer satisfaction that has translated into immediate rebooking. So people who were on these tours started to rebook them all the time because they were so much better than the competition on our marketplace. On average, a Get Your Guide original tour has a 4.78 star review rating versus a 4.38 average review rating for the other tours. So it's significantly better. And we've just gotten started. And now we can actually take all of the data of the original tours, which we fully control, and consistently iterate and make them better. So thereby improving the physical experience. And we will then take that concept and apply it in all the different other categories that I just showed you, from hop-on, hop-off buses, where you can suddenly run our own buses, to day trips, where we can run our own day trips, and all the other experiences that we offer. And that's something that I'm super passionate about, is an integrated platform that spans from the digital world into the physical world. Just to give you a quick overview of what's the scale of where we are today. We have 50,000 products. We have 30 million tickets now sold on our platform. Just in the last 12 months, more than 15 million tickets were sold, so we're still in absolutely exponential growth mode. We have more than 150 nationalities of travelers who shop on our platform. We have 35 million people visiting our services every single month. We have now raised more than 650 million in VC funding, so we're very, very well capitalized. And we have a team that now spans more than 600 people and is growing very fast. So by the end of the year, we'll be around 800 to 900 people. So there is very strong growth across every single dimension in the company. And what's very exciting to me is that we're clearly the market leader in every single European country. So we have 80 to 90% market share in every European country, so there's no one who comes close. But we're also grabbing market share from our competition in the US. So we are faster growing than all of our competitors in the United States source market, so where customers come from, which means that we'll be one of the very few European companies who will probably ever make it to be a market leader as a tech company from Europe into the US. And that has many reasons, which I will share with you over a beer why that was possible on that journey. And we also got lucky in terms of the timing, the technology, and the team, and the investors behind it. But it's something that's incredibly motivating as a founder to finally, not only be crushed by the Americans, but actually do it the other way around. I think that's something that was about time to happen. And just to give you an overview, the tech product's developing rapidly. We will have more than 40 million tickets actually sold by the end of this year. So still, continue to grow, and we'll have more than 55,000 experiences, and that will also continue to grow in a very measured way. So thank you very much for your attention, and we're very much looking forward to having you as customers on our trips.